Hello, hello, and welcome to the show. This is the Delaware Blogger Podcast, and I'm your host, Antoinette Blake, the DE Diva, aka the Delaware Blogger. And every week, I come to you with podcasting pointers that will help you to share your mission and your vision just by using your voice. A new episode of the Delaware Blogger Podcast publishes every Saturday at 10 a.m. And if you wish to sponsor a show, please send an email to me at info@ablakeenterprises.com. Welcome to the Delaware Blogger Podcast. What are you doing while you're cooking, you're cleaning, commuting, or even getting your back cracked? Yeah, at the chiropractor. Get your mind out of the gutter. If you are one of the 55% of Americans, you are probably plugged into a podcast. And guess what? That's what I was doing last weekend while I had a pile of clothes on the ironing board. And yes, I still do iron my clothes. I'm a boomer. You know what? I'm going to pull out that iron and that spray starch and get it done. So I'm looking right and tight when I leave the house. But today I want to talk about podcasting as a way to keep your day running smoothly. This is episode number 324. And you know, I host a show here every Saturday at 10 a.m. And I'm bringing you podcasting pointers, tips, tricks, and hacks that's going to help you with your podcast. I don't care if you're a newbie or a vet, or maybe you're just still sitting on the fence trying to think about starting a show. We're going to get it right and tight here every Saturday at 10 a.m. Now, last week, you may remember that I stated that podcast listenership has increased by 75% since 2013. But if you missed the episode, take a listen after this episode. Because by now, we all know that podcasts have become mainstream media. I know mainstream media, lamestream media, whatever you want to call it. We're not going to get political here. But according to the data from YouGov Profiles, the majority of Americans now listen to podcasts. 14% are listening once or more a day, and another 14% are listening every week. Where are you? Are you listening every day, or you're listening at least once or twice a week? I know you're listening every Saturday at 10, right? Now we know 47% of Americans don't listen to podcasts, right? That's down a little bit. But you know what? Everybody and their grandmom is starting a podcast, and I can just see that numbers going up exponentially. You know, a lot of people have found that it's easier to consume a podcast, whether they're cooking, cleaning, commuting, or getting that back cracked at the chiropractor. So listening to podcasts is a great way to pass the time. You can learn, like, you know how people say, go to YouTube University? Well, you can't go to YouTube University if you're in the car. You can't go to YouTube University if you're walking the dog. You can't go to YouTube University if you need to focus. So the next best thing is to learn something is to find it on a podcast. And once upon a time, and not too long ago, podcast listenership was popular among the younger generations, right? They said about 27% between the ages of 18 and 34 were listening at least once a day, with another about 28% listening several times a week. They don't watch TV like we watch TV. But then as you got a little bit older, like ages 35 to 49, it jumped. It jumped to 45%. And I think this is due to the fact that there are so many different types of podcasts out there. You know, once upon a time, not too long ago, back in, when I started about 2017, it was really just a few male-dominated podcasts. And, if you didn't like them, you just tuned them out. But today there are podcasts about everything being started by everyone, from kids, teenagers, tweenagers, adults, preachers, teachers, doctors, lawyers, authors, comedians, musicians, magicians, everybody is starting a podcast. So it's becoming more popular because there are more topics and more ways to consume your podcast. Artificial intelligence, right? Smartphones, cars with infotainment centers. You can be sitting on the sofa and ask your artificial device to pull up a podcast. Ask her to pull up the Delaware Blogger Podcast and see what happens. I dare you. Do it. Say, hey, Alexa. See, she's coming on now, but I'm not going to say any further. But listen, those that are older than 65, okay, I'm almost there, I'm 62, they're saying that they're not listening to podcasts as often or at all. And I find that really hard to believe. So I'm going to ask my boomers. Boomers, are you listening to me? I want to make sure that you are listening to the Delaware Blogger Podcast every Saturday at 10 a.m. and to the Out and About with Antoinette podcast every Wednesday at 1 p.m. because I'm interviewing people who are from in and around the state of Delaware doing some major things. And guess what? We're international now. Yep, I just interviewed someone in Iraq. I wasn't there, but he was with me via Zoom, but you're cool. But, let's get back to the task at hand. Unlike media or TV, like TV, movies, listening to podcasts leaves your hands free to do other things, cooking, cleaning, commuting, and getting your back cracked, right? You can enjoy it more. And we multitask. So we can listen to a podcast and be at church. We can listen to a podcast while we're at the kids' soccer game. We could be listening to a podcast while we're watching television, right? So if you enjoy various topics, even if it is your favorite book, we know Audible, right? There's some great books out there, Audible books. There are some great topics out there. There's meditation, there's educational podcasts, informational podcasts, inspirational podcasts. If you just need a pick-me-up, there's a podcast for that. So over half of us, 49%, while we're listening, we're doing other things. Yep, we're commuting, cooking, cleaning, baking, ironing. And you know what? Us ladies, we love the ladies, right? We're usually doing chores. We're cooking and baking, ironing, whatever the case may be. And men, when they're working out, in the gym, doing sporting events, they're listening too. But podcast listenership is equal, men and women. And the ages are just, everybody has a pod, everybody's listening. So my question for you today is, do you listen to podcasts while you're cleaning, cooking, and commuting, getting your back cracked, at the chiropractor, ironing clothes? Leave me a comment. I want to know because podcasting is popular and you're thinking about starting a podcast. I'm sure you have a topic that everyone is waiting to hear. So if you want to connect with me, send that email to info@ablakeenterprises.com. We'll get you started with a discovery call and then we can, get you started with my 5-week podcast coaching course. Oh, and speaking of coaching courses and other podcasts, Podbean, they are having a live free event on February 16th, next week, and it's going to be entitled An Intimate Conversation with Women of Color, and it's going to be hosted by Deneen Garrett. And the panelists are going to talk about their paths to success as podcasters, lessons that they've learned, and how the industry can open doors for creators. So if you're an African-American podcaster or podcaster of color, check this out. Go register. Go check out Podbean and then sign up and take a listen. And oh, by the way, speaking of taking a listen and being back, did you hear that Bing is back? Bing is back. We all know about Google. We all know about Yelp. We all know about, Yahoo, Quora and Ask the Public. But Bing is back and they're coming back with a vengeance. So I'm going to try to figure out how we get our podcast listed there as well, because the more you're listed, the better and quicker you can be found. So thank you guys for listening to today's episode of the Delaware Blogger Podcast. And if you found anything that I've said of interest to you, please subscribe and share this with others. You may even want to leave a rating or review and check out some other episodes too. And I invite you to subscribe to my blog, delblogger.com, because I repurpose these episodes and I share guest posts, and you can also purchase a copy of the Basic Blogging Tips for Beginners or the Podcasting Your Purpose resource guides, which are currently on Amazon. So I invite you to send an email to info@ablakeenterprises.com to schedule a 15-minute complimentary discovery call and or enroll in the 5-week podcast coaching session for blogging and or podcasting. So until the next time, this is the DE Diva, aka the Delaware Blogger, wishing you and yours a beautifully blessed day. And remember, sharing is caring. So please share this episode of the Delaware Blogger Podcast with your family, your friends, and your bae and boo too. See ya. It's the DE Diva.